All right. So, AA Ron, we're starting something. Yeah, we're starting something new today. You know.
Mm.
You know what that is?
Nope.
We're starting a podcast.
What's that? What's a podcast?
It's where people go on the internet and talk to each other. But
It's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, kind of a little suspicious. This is our first episode. This is our pilot episode. We hope it'll go far, and we hope to do it. I don't know, maybe. What do you think? A couple times a week?
Sure.
45-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's quite long. So probably about 30.
30. We'll figure it out. So my name's Devin, and your name is
Hey, Ron.
AA Ron. And we do the DNA podcast. Where'd that name come from, DNA?
I don't know.
You don't know. It's Devin and Alpha.
Oh, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, well, it's actually Devin and Aaron. Alpha's his old gaming name back in the Gap. But no, we met each other, what, 2 years ago? Going
Maybe
on 3?
I don't know. I don't keep up with time.
Yeah, we met each other Discord through a gaming community, wasn't it?
It sure was.
Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Devin. I live over here in South Louisiana. We're not in the same studio or anything. We're quite far. Where do you live again, Aaron?
I live in good old Alabama.
Alabama. Yeah. He lives in Alabama. I live in Louisiana. We decided to start a podcast. We've got a guest that's going to be on in the latter half of the episode. Who's that?
You asking me who that was?
Oh, yeah, I'm asking you who it is.
Asking me? I don't know. I think his name is like Jason or something like that.
His name's Jason. Name's Jason B. He'll be joining us later on in the podcast towards the latter half. He's a guy that we know from gaming communities and whatnot, and so I'm pretty excited for it.
He's also an old man. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, he's an old man. He's pretty old. How old do you think he is? In his
probably
30s,
60s, 70s.
Yeah, 60s, 70s. That's right. But no, I've been super excited about this podcast and can't wait to see where it goes. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I really wasn't supposed to be here tonight. We were on a fishing trip. We had gone up to Grand Isle. It's one of those coastal towns we've got here in Louisiana. Because let me tell you, Louisiana's got the best saltwater fishing. And I went down there. We went on a fishing trip, or it was a crabbing trip, and didn't catch anything. It was terrible. We had that fake false alarm hurricane come through. What was it, Hurricane Barry? And it just messed the fishing up down there really bad.
I like to fish.
Yeah, you like to fish? Any good fishing in Alabama?
Nope.
No.
It all sucks. But I like
Good.
it, though. It's still fun.
Yeah, good. So in terms of like topics and things on the podcast, it's going to be kind of skewed. Not really sure where we're going with it. Yeah, but the Hurricane Barry thing, I just had someone bring that up. The Hurricane Barry thing, it happened a week or two ago, but it's still affecting the fish down there. I think they all ran away when it happened. The storm surge.
Yeah, the fish ran away.
Yeah, the
yes.
fish ran away. The storm surge got them, I think, and they were just not there when it came time to fish. But that's okay. We'll go again next year. We've always caught plenty of crabs down there, and we didn't catch, but I think one crab in one of our traps. We didn't set it out, but a couple times though. We did go fishing though, and caught plenty of those little blue catfish, and so that was pretty fun.
Did you eat them? Or
No,
did
we
you
didn't.
eat them?
We yeeted them.
Ah.
They were too small for us anyway. The best way though to be part of the
Hold on,
podcast.
hold on.
Ooh.
Did you catch any crabs while you was down there?
We caught one crab. We set the trap out a couple times and caught one crab.
Mm.
Yeah. So the best way to be a part of the podcast is for sure joining our Discord. We'll have you there. It's the DNA Podcast Discord. It's over there right on your screen. We also have a Twitter at DNA Podcast 3. I plan on just doing notifications and whatnot over there. Not too much happening on Twitter, but Discord's definitely the place to be if you want to be part of the podcast. And we hope to see you over there. But no, this is episode 1. So what's been going on with you, Aaron?
Work.
You started a new job recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where at?
Grocery store.
A grocery store.
It sucks. Don't do it. Don't get a job at a grocery store. I know Jason can verify that.
Yeah. See, I've got a retail job, and I don't mind it at all. But grocery store, I don't know. Maybe it's a little different. You think it's a little different from a regular retail store?
I don't know. I ain't ever worked at a retail store, so.
Yeah. What's so bad about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having to work.
That's it. You just don't like work.
No, I like work. I just don't like. I like outside work. I'm not a indoors person.
Work gets you paid.
That's why I have a job.
Yeah. That's why we all have jobs. Yeah, I work in retail as well. I mean, it's not great, but I mean, I don't mind it, and it pays me enough, Yeah, I'm reading the chat here. We sell a little risque items in our store, but it's okay. I don't mind. Let's see. Let's check on the stream here. Looks like we're doing pretty good. Yeah, we're holding strong. Hey, Ron, when do you think we should introduce our guests?
Right now, because I may or may not have just stabbed myself with my knife.
Are you playing with a knife during the podcast?
Maybe, and I may or may not have stabbed myself. And he can cover for me while I go get a napkin.
Is that right? All right, well, you do that. We're going to introduce our guest. His name's Jason B. We've known him from the gaming community we're in. He wanted to be on our podcast tonight, and we said, no problem. How's it going, Jason B?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. So, what? How long you think we've known you, Jason?
Oh man, probably about 2.5 years, I'd say.
2.5 years. Yeah, we met on the same gaming community I met Aaron, right? Huh?
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
Yep. Well, hello. Heard you stabbed yourself.
Yeah, so just don't be playing with knives during the podcast. I was cutting the label off of a bottle, and it kind of went through, and I wasn't expecting it to, and yeeted my finger.
Yeah, just don't play with knives in general if you're just not intelligent. That's.
I mean, it can be fun.
Yeah.
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 It can be fun.
All right, so
give me 1 second.
We're giving Devin 1 second. What are we gonna do within this 1 second, Jason?
So I think we can further talk about our retail experiences.
Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't work in regular retail like Devin does. I also work in a grocery store. I'm a manager, and yeah, it's 7 years with the company I work for now. I'm not going to disclose any of names or anything like that, but
I'm
Wouldn't
working
either.
a solid 3 years. I'm just kidding. A solid like 3
Oh, you
weeks.
just started.
um, but it's not too awful bad. It kind of sucks, kind of doesn't. Today we had to take all of the displays and everything up off the floor, because we're getting our floor waxed.
oh,
So that sucked. It sucked big.
we just went through that last week, and ours was over a 3-day portion, so it's like,
We was able to get it done all in one day. Now, whether or not we went and stocked shelves today, that's a different story. Because
yeah.
they had cashiers and stockers just ripping crap up off of the floor.
I was actually fortunate enough this run around that I didn't have to be there for second shift to rip everything off the floor. I was more or less, you know, gotten the opportunity to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to work and put everything back with the smell of wax making me high all morning.
Oof. Yeah, one of my coworkers, he's having to go back at 5:30. They're waxing it overnight, and so my coworker, he's having to go back 5:30 in the morning to put all the displays back. I was like, that's rough. You have fun.
Definitely
used
no
to-
bueno.
I used to, when I worked third shift, that was always the worst because back then we used to get daily deliveries, so we'd have to work around the people waxing the floors. And I don't know about you guys, we have like the company I work for likes to hire the cheapest, probably the worst quality people you can get. So a lot of these people don't speak fluent English.
Oh yeah, that's exactly exactly the same thing here.
It's rough, man.
Hmm.
But now I don't work third shifts. I don't have to worry about that. I just have to deal with the aftermath, which, like I said, I'm not a morning person by any means because by the time I'm usually going to bed is the time I'm also waking up for work when I work first shift. So yeah, I don't like to be around anybody or talk to anybody or
Yeah,
just be alive at 5:30 to 6 in the
I
morning.
feel you. Only time I like being alive at 5:30 or 6 in the morning is whenever I'm either hunting or I'm fishing.
There you go. That's how you do it. Jason, I got to ask you, what do you think about the podcast?
It's pretty solid so
Pretty
far.
solid?
I mean, yeah, 10
Yeah.
out of 10 would be back on, of course, if I was offered the opportunity.
Yeah, I think we can have you as a regular, right, Aaron?
Yep, sounds good to
That'd be
me. We
fun.
also got a couple more people we can come as a special guest.
Yeah, we've got a list of people we can always bring on. And in the meantime, we've got me and Aaron to give you company. But no, Jason, what do you think about the podcast? Because we need ideas for topics, right? That's one thing that and going into the future, we're gonna have to, really incorporate. But man, what do you think?
I don't know, man. See, I'm just starting to get into more podcasts. Like I try to not watch anything that gets too politic involved because that's such a touchy subject. Like
It really is.
Yeah.
so I would say stray away from the politics, but like, the big thing I would say, games brought us all together.
Games did.
Everybody that's basically watching this and our muted audience that is listening to us.
Yeah.
We all have known each other for the most part for well over a year. So, I mean, games and the internet, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I could go on. I can make a separate podcast just about how the internet has changed my life because I've been doing streaming and all that type of stuff for a long time.
Yeah, we've got the 5 currently watching our podcast live, but it will be archived on our YouTube channel for people to watch far into the future. So that's one thing, we're going to do these live streams, but if you're watching at a later date, there's nothing wrong with that. Hopefully they can do just as good for you. But these will be streamed we don't have a time set up now. Our schedules are kind of skewed. We don't even know how many times a week we're going to do this. We're estimating anywhere from 2 to 3. But you can always go back and watch them because they'll always be archived on our YouTube channel.
Check them out.
Yep.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. But
so I don't know. Maybe just throw this out there. I mean, I know this really isn't my place. I'm just this kind of guest for today. So obviously we talked about at the beginning about how we kind of met, but we didn't really go into detail as to
Yeah.
what this all is, and really give everybody kind of a greater detail as to how we met and what we do in this quote unquote gaming community. You know, I'm sure somebody looking back or watching that doesn't know could probably use filled in with that.
Yeah, maybe. So, what? So there's this game, right? Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm sure most of you know what it is, right? Um, well, there are 5M servers, what they're called, and so they're basically online servers that aren't through the Rockstar, so you can mod them and do stuff like that. And so we've been in these online communities there, and there's a lot of people involved in them. Aaron, it was 3 communities back we all met, right?
It was probably 4 or 5, honestly.
I mean, by now, yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a it was a while back.
we've been through some changes, um, been through some staff changes, but we're still all together. Hey, Ron, I think you've been doing it for longer than I have, though, huh?
I think I've done it a little bit longer. But I think Jason, you was doing it way longer before I was, wasn't
Really?
you?
I don't know. I mean, I bounced around different communities prior to meeting you guys. I mean,
I did do that.
it wasn't very long. I mean, I just happened to find an unfortunate series of events that the communities kept falling apart in.
Yeah.
See,
Before
before I
that.
joined the main server that we all met in, or Devin, was you in that server?
LSCS?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in LSCS.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
I was in
well,
another
LCS.
one right before it for probably 6 to 8 months, and then I left it, went to LSCS, and that's where we all met up.
Yeah,
I
a lot of
was-
us.
Before
A lot
that,
of us met there.
yeah, that's where all of us here met. Before that, I was in 2 others for a little while, and then I stopped, and then I came back on. Found y'all. Y'all had a lot better of a structure over there and more of a community, and so I kind of stayed there. And then now we do our own stuff sometimes on Discord, and this just happened to be one of them. Me and Aaron were on real late night one day. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little before that, and one of us. Because we've had this name DNA, we've had it before. We play a game called American Truck Simulator, and we had DNA Logistics when we played online, and that's because it came from Devin and Aaron, and we turned that into a podcast because we thought it'd be a good idea. So overnight and that next morning, went up, got some stuff set up, got approved for live streaming by YouTube, and got some graphics set up, and OBS is running great. So I mean, it happened pretty quickly. This was only a couple days ago when we kind of got this thing set up. I got my mic the way I think I like it. I know there's a little bit of echo. It's just I got a large room. There's nothing I can really do about it. But I think everybody sounds great. So yeah, I think it works out, nicely. But
Yeah, it's amazing how the late night kind of atmosphere really brought us together, because
yep.
I know that's how Devin and I really got to become friends. Was we would always play on 5M, and we'd be up till really late, late at night and into the morning. Where I'm on the East Coast, so I live in Pennsylvania, so it'd be 6, 7 in the morning, and we'd still be playing. And I'm like, dude, I gotta go. Like it's like I'm used to being up late at night, but
no, that was a lot of fun.
yeah,
that was back in the good old days, like that, man.
Hey, shout out to Alex. He used to always be up late with us too.
Oh
He
man, me and
Alex
were great friends.
Well, shout out to Heldon, man. He was out there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, Alex was one of our old friends of one of our older communities. For those of you, most of you probably don't know him, but he was around. He was a great friend. Him and Kyle, and Kyle's what was it? His cousin or something?
Oh, I forgot about Kyle.
His younger brother.
Oh, his younger brother.
Corey.
Yep, Kyle and Corey were great guys.
Wow,
too.
I forgot about them. That's crazy.
Yeah, they didn't. When our previous community split up, they those guys didn't go with us, which was unfortunate because we had a lot of fun with them. But now we're here, and now we're doing this.
Yeah, I've told you guys, a few times over at least last year or early this year. I got the opportunity to at least, get back together with those guys and do a little bit of gaming. We did some Rainbow Six for a few hours, and ironically, I was drinking that night also.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it felt nice to be back with those guys again, because you don't talk to some people for a good year, and these are people that you came to be good friends with. The whole series just was very unfortunate how everything went down, and
yeah, that was rough.
Those are definitely the people I missed the most out of that.
Yeah, for sure. For those of you who are into this kind of stuff, Jason, you've got your own Discord, don't you? You've got your own design Discord. He's great. He does a lot of design work for the Grand Theft Auto community. So quick plug there. Do you have your stuff for your Discord?
Give me 1 second. I can generate that stuff right now.
Yeah, go ahead and plug that in.
So I'm gonna pop that here in the live chat. So if you guys watching later, you can go ahead and just look at the live chat replay. It's right there. So yeah, I do skin development for the FiveM community and for the LSPDFR platform as well. Ironically, I used to hate doing this whenever we first separated and started our own group. I used to absolutely despise it, and now it's actually pretty fun. I've grown to meet some pretty cool people along the way. I actually work for a well-known developer who makes the vehicles that I put the liveries on, and he's been cool to work with, and been able to meet some cool people through him. So
it's crazy when you find a community like this, the people that are in it, and the way they all kind of communicate, and how stuff gets around.
Yeah, this is as big a community as the LSPDFR and FiveM community combined are. You see a lot of people getting blackballed because this community also has its toxic traits, and the people who work very hard to get stuff out there for people, their stuff gets put on sites where they shouldn't be, and people are downloading it, and it gets around, man. There's a good group of people helping to prevent stuff like that, because some people actually make this a second job. They make a decent amount of money off of just making, a Dodge Charger you'd never think you'd put in your Grand Theft Auto. I mean, these guys make some good money off of it.
Yeah.
And for all that hard work to get thrown away is just completely, it sucks. You see a lot of stuff like that happening. Luckily, we're kind of in the community. We're on the downslope of that. Around the earlier portion of the year, that was a big thing. Just a lot of the developers actually shut down and stopped and refused doing work because they just, they're afraid all their hard work was getting thrown out there for everybody to just steal.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and it sucks whenever you have good vehicle developers or anything that make money off of the vehicle that they're making, and then they turn around and put that money that they're getting paid into more vehicles. I mean, that's just sad that people are releasing their stuff and then it's just going to waste, basically.
Hey, but you know what? Just like anything popular, I mean, you're not going to avoid it. It's the internet. Just like music's going to be out there for people to download for free. That's always been that way. As long as the internet's relevant to everybody, that, anything you worked hard for and you're not charging people, it's going to make its way out there eventually. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's that way, but that's just how the cookie crumbles with it.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, we're going to do a quick intermission. We can get some stuff figured out and hopefully bring some content back here in just a second. But this shouldn't last too long. All right. So we're coming back here off of our short break. Just want to make sure the stream is ready. But no, we're back. But it's the 6th of August. So we've had some crazy stuff happen recently, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What they had. It's been 2 shootings. It's just
Within
crazy.
24 hours
Yeah,
time too, man. That's
it really is.
the bizarre statistic about it.
There's 2. What was the other one?
There was the Texas one at the Walmart, and then there was one in Dayton, Ohio, that happened
I didn't
earlier.
hear about this one in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, it happened. I think it was somewhere between maybe like midnight, 1 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Yep. So 9 people were killed in Dayton. I'm gonna throw this up on the stream. It's gonna be CNN.com, and I can throw it up here on what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. And I knew about the El Paso.
Yep. Hopefully this should be up on stream now. But yeah, there were 2 shootings. Man, 31 people killed over the weekend from Texas and Ohio. They had 22 that were killed in El Paso. They had a lot wounded too. I think it was. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was, I want to say 20 when I last checked, wounded. And in Dayton, 9 people were killed. I know in El Paso was in a Walmart. You know, just is really crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was just sitting on a conference call at work today, and again, retail environment. That's the topic. Among a lot of the big stores, and our management conference call that they ended on talking about the whole shooting thing and how to be prepared for that. And you could sit there and tell people facts about how to be prepared, but you're really never prepared for something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those
it happens
moments
when you least expect it, really.
Yeah. This kid here, a 6th grader named Ruben Martinez, it says here, I'm looking at CNN.com, hashtag El Paso Challenge. He started this challenge where he wants you to complete 22 random acts of kindness for each one of the victims of the shooting. I think that's really positive. Let's see, I'm showing up on screen now. There's a little letter that he wrote. It says his purpose was to honor the people who got killed in our city. It shows us how, and even gives us examples on this little handwritten note from him. Again, he's a 6th grader, but it's at least. I don't want to say that it's affecting the community. Well, he is trying to affect his community in a positive way. Not saying the shootings did that, but I think that's really cool that little kid did that.
Yeah, it's nice to see the media actually kind of boosting stuff like that, because a lot of times you hear about how the media kind of nitpicks at certain aspects of a situation and blows it up. And it's nice to see the positive side of something like that, getting the spotlight for once.
Yesterday I was looking at CNBC on this, and they were giving his name out and stuff. And I'm looking at CNN, and I don't see his name anywhere. The shooter over in El Paso, I don't see his name. But I'm glad that they're not putting their names and their faces out there. I think a lot of people, they see these shootings and they see what's happening, and they're wanting to go out and do it themselves. And I don't know if that's how it's working out, but that's what it seems like it's doing. So I'm glad that these people the media isn't putting their name and faces out there.
Yeah, a lot of times you see that, and people get actually very upset because they're popularizing the person who started all this, And I found the name here through
I
CBS,
see it. I see it as well. I see it on CNN.
But I'm not going to give the guy the light of day because it's just
Yeah, it says he is the guy from El Paso. He is currently in custody and is being held without bond. Thank goodness. So, and I've heard that may have been racism that fueled it. That's just what I'm seeing on CNN. He had a manifesto, is what I believe, seeing on Fox. So it was really crazy. This guy, they got people like that out there, and you never know what they're going to do.
Yeah, you just got to be the one wrong mindset. I mean, that
Mhm.
a lot of people talk about gun control and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
you can go through all that, but someone's having a hard time in their life. 5 months ago when they purchased that gun, they could have been a whole nother person, and
Yeah.
you know there's just a lot of aspects to it. Gun control is not the only thing that can
No, definitely not.
contribute to any of this stuff.
Mm-mm.
And but again, that I don't want to go too much into detail about stuff like that because that's a very touchy subject. And
Yeah, I agree. They're having a lot. I'm seeing on CNN they're having a lot of vigils and things, which is good. Um, they had a lot of young kids that were harmed here too. So definitely not a good time.
yeah,
Um,
it's weird to be young and go through something like that. You know, not quite the same experience, but you guys weren't really around for this. And this, you guys poke fun at my age earlier, but I was young when 9/11 actually happened, and that was a big
yeah,
thing in my life. That's a day I'll never forget.
really,
And the same thing with those young kids. They're never gonna forget the day that that happened. You
yeah,
know.
definitely crazy. And we got school coming up too. And a couple years ago, that was just crazy what was going on. I think it was 2 years ago, and we were just it was going crazy. And they had some last year. Just man, I don't
I
get it. I never will understand what drives people, whether it's mental. I don't know.
a lot of this like with the school shootings and stuff. It seems there's a lot of it's a lot of it's happening in the public schools, and
Yeah,
I my alma mater that I graduated from has a lot of issues with bullying, and I'm genuinely surprised that something like that hasn't happened. I'm glad it hasn't happened because I know people who's got kids that go to you know the schools that I went to, and I would never want to see that happen because it's very close to home for me. But it's just a lot of the public school systems don't want to do anything about it. They don't put their right foot forward and take care of the issues that are going on in the schools. They kind of brush it off, and
yeah, but
that's
you got bullying. A lot of times, though, it can be really hard to crack down on that kind of stuff because you got people who really don't want to maybe say something about it. Um, if they're being bullied. So
yeah.
there's so many different angles to that kind of stuff. It really can get crazy.
I saw something on Facebook the other day, and I actually had to look at this because it caught my eye. So again, we're going in the back to school. They actually had some sort of website where they were advertising bulletproof backpacks for back
Really,
to school. And I thought to myself, man, that is that's sad.
it really is.
Who'd ever come to think that you're going to send your child to school with a bulletproof backpack?
Yeah,
It's we've gotten to that point in just the society we live in that you fear for something like that anymore, and it shouldn't be that way. You look at it, when I was younger, when you guys were kids, this wasn't a big thing, and it's hard to pinpoint where all the problems start. I'm sure some people will say politics play into this and yada yada yada. I just keep my opinions to myself. I don't talk politics too often, but regardless, we can all agree that the society that we live in right now and what's going on around us is just it's a shame.
yeah,
It's not good. It's needs to be fixed, and you know they say time will wound all heal, or time will heal all wounds. There we go. I don't know that that's really working with the issues we get going on with the shootings and stuff in this country. It's just
yeah. I think the country needs more unity, but
yeah,
it's hard to do
yeah,
something like that, especially when everyone wants to throw politics and everything. But
yeah. There's a lot of separation in this country, and I get it. No, no two people are going to agree on the same thing, and that's the cool thing about it is we can agree to disagree. But
yeah,
people don't like to agree to disagree. They
exactly.
like it's you throw your opinion out on the table, and if you don't agree with it, then it turns into a big fight, and
Yeah,
That's where a lot of problems lie. Is people can't just say, okay, you know what? I understand your side of the story. I understand where you're coming at with things, but here's how I think about it, and
Yep.
we go on with our lives, and it's just, yeah, it's a shame.
Yep.
I don't know.
Hey, Ron, what's your take on this?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
It's like he opened his mouth and raised his hand, and then he just kind of froze there. He's
Yeah.
like, eh.
That's exactly what happened.
But
I mean,
But
basically, y'all said everything that needs to be said about it, so
yeah, guys,
Yeah,
really
if
much I
you're
can add on to it.
if you're watching now, I urge you to go into our Discord as soon as you can. We've got it right there. We've got it in the About section of our channel, as well as right there on your screen. And go into our suggestions. Give us comments and concerns about the podcast. Tell us what we could be doing better, and give us ideas. What do you guys want to hear us talk about? We'd love to see it there in the suggestions of our Discord. But like I said, Discord is the best way to be part of the podcast. But
I'm going to change the topic here a little bit. Did you guys hear about how police officers are now having to, you know how they'd aim for the chest, center mass to take down
I've
or
heard that
kill
before.
somebody? Now they're changing it to where you aim at the hip. You don't know why?
Tell us why, Aaron.
It's because most mass shooters these days, they'll have a bulletproof vest on. And, if you're shooting with a pistol,
Mm-hmm.
like an average police issued pistol, 9mm, 45, whatever you got, it's going to hit the vest, and most vests would stop that easily. But the vest doesn't cover the hip. And if you shoot somebody in the hip, they're immediately going to go down.
Yep. So we actually
That's
have.
just crazy how the police are having to aim at the hip because people are, being able to get these bulletproof vests and
Mm-hmm.
throw them on and go and do stupid stuff with it.
So that's interesting. You're talking about police policy. Here on the lineup for the podcast, we plan sometime in the future, hopefully soon, to have a police officer on the podcast. Hopefully. We'll see if we can't get that arranged. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
we hired Officer 401.
We did.
Yes. Like the cop.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them.
Actually, I'm not gonna lie. I took my whole retirement fund and I got Trooper Calicote from Live PD to come on.
Oh.
Really?
That man,
Really now?
that man is my idol. He, I was telling my mom, she was watching Live PD, and I was like, I like that guy. And she's like, why? Because he's got all these tattoos. I'm like, no, man, the dude's got a killer power stance when he walks up and starts talking to people. So tune in next time. Trooper Calicote's gonna be here.
Yeah, well, the thing with Live PD is, I love Live PD, but it's taking the thunder away from cops, and I love cops, you know. It's
You know what,
too much
though?
of a classic.
Cops has been around for so long
Yeah.
that the format has stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, Cops will always hold a special place in my heart because I grew up watching Cops with my dad every day after
Yep,
school.
same.
I like that was like my bonding time was watching that, and it's nice that there's something else out there, a little different format, and gives you a little bit more different side of the law enforcement,
Yeah,
field.
it's fun the way they do it live. What was it? I want to say it was Fox that did kind of a spinoff of Live PD.
Yeah, I remember. It didn't last too long, did it?
It may still be going on because I think it's fairly new. Because I remember they were following the Baton Rouge Police Department, and that's fairly close to my area, and I thought that was very interesting. I remember seeing the first episode of it, and I haven't really looked into it after that, but I think they did kind of a spinoff. I don't know how it's going to last. And then you've got they're doing Live Rescue, I think, on A&E. Is that the name of it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Live Rescue, so kind of a spinoff of Live PD. But no, Cops, man, I don't know why, but Cops are just, it's like the granddad of Live PD. So
Oh yeah, you never want to see something like that die, but
Yeah.
all good things will come to an end at some point. And cops, I think a lot of what it seemed to be is a lot of agencies didn't want to stick around with cops for prolonged times. Like a lot of the bigger ones stuck with them.
Yeah.
But although the one thing I did like about cops was the variety over the years. I
Yeah.
mean, you could find almost, I, Christ, a lot of different police departments. I know my local department was on there back in the '90s for like 2 or 3 episodes, and I would kill to find those episodes because it's
And I want to tell you something. This is something I did fairly recently. I tried to get, I think I want to say it's season 9 and up, are the only seasons you can find online. I sent an email to the studio that does Cops, and I was not able to get any other episodes. I've noticed they've kind of been putting some stuff on YouTube, so maybe they'll make those episodes available. There's a YouTuber out there that was putting up the older episodes, but they got his channel taken down, he's not doing those anymore. And
yeah,
man,
that's copyright.
yeah, anything below season 9 you cannot find online. The only place you can get it, I think, is on TV. I think it's Spike, but I think Spike changed their name, and I think it's on a
It's
channel or two.
it so funny we're on the topic of cops. So as a kid, I remember my dad, back when cassettes were still the thing.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had the cassette for Inner Circle, which was the band who did the Cops, Bad Boys song.
Oh yeah.
And again, being so influenced on Cops, I remember, coming home from school, I'd like want my dad to pick me up in our god awful Chevy Cavalier that had the poor cassette player,
Mm-hmm.
just so we can listen to that. And I would listen to Bad Boys on repeat the whole way home.
Jesus.
And my poor dad probably hated himself because I used to love that song. And I'm sure if my kid did that, I would probably just rip the cassette out and throw it out the window someday, because you can only take so much of that song before you just want to,
Yeah.
throw it out the window.
People watching the podcast now can see. There's some pictures of a Chevy Cavalier. I figured I'd Google that up.
Oh no! That's too modern, bub. You
Was
gotta.
it? Give me a year.
We're probably looking at late '90s. So like, let's say '99, 2000.
We'll go with 97.
Yeah, we'll go for that.
Yeah. There it was. Nothing wrong with that, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that was like the thing back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to the cassette era. It seemed like it was very short-lived.
Yeah,
I mean,
up until recently, my grandfather had he's got a 2000 Toyota Tacoma, and it had one in there, but the stereo went out, and he had to go to Walmart and buy one of them, and throw it in there. But he had a cassette player for a long time in that truck.
it's even weird now. You still see cars with CD players, and
Mine's got it. Yep, mine's got a CD player. It's got a 6-disc CD player, actually.
Oh, is that the ones that they put in the trunk of the? Or is it actually?
No, it's a massive stereo. I've taken it out before because I wired up a subwoofer one time, but it's a massive stereo, and it holds 6 discs somewhere. I don't know where, but 6 discs can fit in there somewhere. And there's 2 slots. There's one for CDs, 6 CDs, and then one for a DVD underneath, because you can play DVDs. But
yeah, I wasn't fortunate enough to have like. We had I think one car that had a CD player, and I remember whenever I was a kid, my folks bought a brand new 2002 Ford Focus right off the lot. It was the first car we ever had that had a CD player in it.
yeah,
And that was actually, you think about it, that was pretty new for the times back then. And I was so excited because it was like, I don't have to listen to the cassette. I don't have to rewind the cassette anymore. You don't have to worry about the tape just wearing out, but yet again, your equivalent to that was the CD scratching and your song skipping 1,000 times. And
Yeah. I remember me and a friend used to play Halo. We do that all night long, and this is middle school when we first met. We first met in 6th or 7th grade, but I remember we had a scratch Halo game and we wanted to play it, and I remember looking up on YouTube. This guy, he got the chapstick and he wrote the chapstick on the disc to fill in the gaps. I guess I guess that's what was going on. And sure enough, thing wasn't working. I popped it in and it worked for a little while. So maybe that's your answer.
see, I remember the go-to trick as a kid was toothpaste. Get cheap toothpaste, and you smeared it on the whole disc, and then what you did was you let it sit there until it kind of like it got a little hardened,
Mm-hmm.
and then you wiped it off with like a soft towel, and then it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
I had like about a 30% rate, that it actually worked on, but I also had a lot of douchebag friends that I'd say, hey, you can borrow, my PS2 game or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'd get it back and it just busted to all hell, and I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
we could try this. And then I get yelled at from my parents for wasting toothpaste for a freaking video game that.
Yeah. Aaron, you play any console?
Nope, I don't.
Have you ever?
Back in the day, I had a PlayStation 3, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Man.
I used to have a PS2, and then we got the original Xbox because it was I think my uncle's PS2. But I got an original Xbox, and after I got that, I got a PS3. We actually had a house fire, and so after the house fire, I got a Xbox 360, and then I have a Xbox One and a PS4 now, but I just don't ever play either one of them. I did when Red Dead Redemption came out. I did play that on my Xbox a lot, but
So
that's basically.
So I want to ask you this, since you've been pretty extensive in both, PlayStation and Microsoft gaming systems. What do you prefer better?
Okay, so it's gonna be, and this is strictly because of the controller. PlayStation for sure. The Xbox One controller is garbage. It sucks. It's awkward in your hand, but the worst part is the joysticks are so loose. It's just ridiculous how loose, and they don't travel like they should. It's the joysticks on the Xbox One controllers that kill me. Plus, I don't like the triggers. They got like this soft feel when you bring them all the way back, and it's awful. So PlayStation 4 controller wise for sure, and that's why I think it's better.
Yeah, see, I was never big in the Xbox. Like, I had a PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2. I didn't own a PlayStation 3, but my roommate in college had one, and I probably played that thing at least 20 times more than he did.
Yeah.
And then I used to play Xbox and stuff like that when my friends, but there was always that divide between like the PlayStation and the Xbox, even in the like the OG days.
Yeah.
The Xbox people never played with the PlayStation people, and you were never invited to their house because you played the other console.
Yeah. Best controller of all time though, Xbox 360 for sure. Like hands down.
See,
the PS3 didn't have triggers though. I'm pretty sure the PS3 had, or I know the PS3 didn't have triggers. It had buttons where the triggers are. So
What do you mean?
I mean, it had buttons, like it had flat buttons, like the PS2 did.
Yeah. See, I'm always gonna feel for the PS2 controller. That was so nostalgic because I spent so many hours on a PS2.
Yeah, GTA 3 and San Andreas. I remember my uncle at that time lived at my grandparents' house, and I was there. Anytime I went over there, I'd go and play his PlayStation 2 with San Andreas and 3. I never did play Vice City though until I was older.
I remember when I first got Grand Theft Auto, and again, this is back in the day where there was a little bit more leniency in the game market because every Grand Theft Auto is rated R. And I remember being in a Boscov's in our local mall, back when Boscov's sold electronics religiously, and begging my mom to buy GTA 1 and 2 because they had a
Oh man, that's
bundled.
old.
Yeah. Like, I've owned every copy of GTA, not the flex but that's like the one game I've stayed truly religious to buying because it's always been fun.
You know,
Every game is different.
I
But
can't wait for 6.
yeah.
The release date for San Andreas was October 26, 2004.
God, man, that seems forever ago. I
Yeah.
That game is so nostalgic to me. Out of any games I played on PS2, that and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2
I did play that.
were so nostalgic, and I think those two games had such a great soundtrack to them. Devin and I have talked about this on numerous occasions. They in San Andreas, KDST
Oh,
was
K-Dust, yes.
was hands down the best rock
Yes.
station that ever came to be on any Grand Theft Auto game ever.
Yes,
And
the
and
dust.
actually, it was weird because I was just reading into that. I was watching a YouTube video where somebody had actually, ripped the whole audio from the game and put it on YouTube. Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses was the DJ on that. Did you know that?
I didn't know. I didn't know what his name was.
Yeah, just like how they have for GTA 5 on the rock station, they have Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Again, this is a little bit before your time, so you guys might not know the relevancy behind it, but these are pretty relevant classic rockers.
Kenny Loggins, I remember. Recognize the name, but I know I'm not familiar as to who he is.
Highway to the Danger Zone. Footloose. A lot of, and then of course Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine and stuff like that. But I never knew it was him because I even listened back to it in being somebody that loves music and plays music. I could not recognize his voice.
Really?
And as you see on the screen there, he's got up the KDSD wiki page. Somewhere on there, it actually has, I think it's right there in the top there, it says, voiced by Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose. And it does not sound like him. Now, mind you, this was, again, 15 years ago when Guns N' Roses wasn't really doing anything and he was kind of doing his own solo stuff. But
Yeah, Tommy Smith. Tommy the Nightmare Smith is what his in-game name was.
I don't care who you are. Hands down, the top 3 soundtracks in the early 2000s for any games were K-Dust for San Andreas, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Well, again, if you listen to rock music,
Yeah.
of course, if you appreciate classic rock or metal music, those two, and I actually played a lot of Madden games. That was another series.
I've done that before, but never really got into it.
The first one I ever owned was Madden 2003, and that one had a really cool soundtrack because it had a mix. It had a really cool mix of everything, and it's a lot of music that I grew up listening to. And there's some songs that from bands that aren't really relevant anymore that still stick in my head to this day. But
Yeah.
Madden series was fun, man. I played a lot on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list here, the songs, and just I like the "A Horse with No Name" by America. Anytime I hear that, like I instantly think of San Andreas. And there's another one. Looking through them, I don't see it. I don't recognize the name, but it's a song about the. Oh no, that's on K Rose. There's another station on San Andreas called K Rose. That's where that song was. I think it's.
See, the two that always stuck out.
Louisiana
Well,
something.
the Horse with No Name was always one because
Yeah.
I used to always remember the difficult challenge of trying to drive up Mount Chiliad in San Andreas because it had such a narrow pathway. But Eminence Front by The Who was always one. That was like one of the songs that you listen to like the synth in the beginning and it's like it sounds real cool. And then Hold the Line by Africa.
Yeah.
Because it always played when you got in the jet.
Really?
Like every time. Yeah, when you pop up the glass in the front and you get in, Hold the Line's always playing because they had it defaulted to that song every
Hmm.
time, and it stuck with me because Toto is a fun band.
Yeah, definitely a good station. Hey, Ron, you listen to country though, don't you?
Yeehaw, I do. Dadgum. I listen to a little bit of classic.
Do
I
you?
mean, mainly that good old country.
What kind of countries? Because for me, I'm not really big into country. I've tried and I've listened to it, but I've never really been big into it. Like what do you
Now, if
what
it's
does
the
it
new
for you?
country, I won't listen to it a whole lot at all. But we're talking about old country, 80s, 90s. That's where the real country's at. I
Yeah.
mean,
Real country died in like 2008.
it really did.
That
2008.
seriously,
It did.
I grew up in. It's weird because when you think of Pennsylvania, you don't think of wooded,
Yeehaw.
yeehaw. But I grew up in the mountains, secluded away from the rest of my town,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up on rock and roll and country,
And four
and
wheelers.
yeah, and four wheelers, and actually three wheelers.
Oh,
I started out on a 1980s Honda three wheeler, and
Yeah.
I
I
can.
actually never been on one of them. I've been on dirt bikes, four wheelers, razors, all that kind of stuff. I ain't
But
never been on no three wheeler. I'd like to though.
I begged my dad, so it was the nice thing about being a single child was I got everything. I mean, I took for granted a lot of things that I had going for me in my childhood, but
Yeah.
I begged my dad because my neighbors got a three wheeler, so we found one, and it was an old Honda ATC 110, and
Oh boy.
so my backyard kind of sat on an angle, and then
Yeah.
the house behind me, their driveway was lower than our backyard, so there was a little decline there. And I remember getting it, and I was riding down the roads, and I was going up the thing, and I've been on quads before, but I've never been on a three wheeler, so I'm not used to not having weight on the front. And so I flipped the thing over. My three wheeler rolled down the hill into my neighbor's car
Oh boy.
on the first day. But between that and pinning myself on a tree in a three wheeler, that was not fun.
Worst thing I've had happen to me was I was on my bike and it was raining. That was the first mistake. But it was raining and I came around a corner and it was a little bit of downhill, but I was going second gear and I popped it into third and I popped the clutch so I'd wheelie. And then whenever I let the wheelie down, my front tire super bald. My front tire landed on a wet patch of grass and it slid out from under me and I was going pretty fast. And all I remember is I don't remember sliding or anything. I just remember ending up on the ground and I was like, ow, that hurt. And my chest, it hurt for a solid 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah,
Then
that
the other day, me and my friend, we was riding together and we just got off the road and he has a CRF 250. I have a CRF 230. He we was just about to put up. I parked my bike next to my truck, and he was still riding around doing wheelies. And he lost control of his wheelie, ended up wheeling into the side of his car.
oh
Put a fat dent in the side, scratched
Man.
it, and then scraped up his eyebrow. He didn't have a helmet on, which was stupid of him. But he
yeah.
scraped up his eyebrow, and he had to go to the hospital and get stitches for it. It was bad.
I've been fortunate enough out of all the dumb stuff I did on ATVs, motorcycles, three wheelers, I never actually ended up in the hospital. Even when I pinned myself up against the tree, I thought I broke my rib cage because a couple years prior to that, when I was doing BMX racing, I had uh, wrecked jumping a jump, and the handlebars went into my rib cage, and
That's happened to me.
I almost broke it. And of course, it was all for jumping and showing off for a cute girl, and that.
Oh, there
Oh,
it
good.
is.
That'll get you every
Hey,
time.
hey, you know what though? I got her attention because as I'm standing in the the bleachers, not being able to race that day, she come over and asked me if I was all right because she watched me eat shit,
Mhm.
2 hours earlier. So got her attention, but nothing ever went beyond that. But yeah, one thing that aside from that was when I got my first quad. Um, the I don't know if
Quad.
you Well, ATV.
Four-wheeler.
ATV? What did you say? It's a four-wheeler.
It's a four-wheel. Depends on where you're at.
Shout out to Kellen Dobbins. He's in the chat.
Hey. So, you guys are familiar with Gander Mountain, correct?
I'm
Sounds
not.
familiar.
I'm not.
So-
Oh yeah, the store.
It's like the knockoff of like
Bass Pro Shop.
Bass Pro Shop, Cabela, stuff like that. So at one point when they first started opening, they sold ATVs and four-wheelers, whatever you want to call it there.
Boats
and-
too.
And we bought one, took it home, and I beat the shit out of that thing. Like, it wasn't like an Arctic Cat. It wasn't like a name brand. It was just
It's like some Chinese brand.
pretty
I've
much.
heard those.
I can't even remember what the name of it was. So I beat the hell out of that thing. And I remember not even a year into having that thing, I was at my buddy's house and I come flying out of his backyard onto the side road. And again, I lived in, a one main road and a couple side roads, and there was a total of maybe 25 people that lived in this whole vicinity. And I was flying out of his backyard, and somebody was coming down the side road, and it was either A, just T-bone them and probably just murder myself, or B, which I thought was the smart option, was romp it right into reverse and just rip the transmission to death.
Oh no!
Do it.
Oh, hey, well, see, at the time, those ATVs didn't have really good brakes, and my rear brakes weren't working,
Yeah.
and using your front brakes isn't very ideal in
Mm-mm.
snowy conditions. So I romped it into reverse, and it ripped my transmission into shreds. I just remember hearing that noise. It just awful grinding. And
Ooh.
I remember calling my dad, and he had to come down with his truck and come pull me. And there's just transmission, like fluid, just leaking everywhere.
Oh no!
Like-
That poor four-wheeler.
Oh yeah, I got my ass whooped for that.
Mm.
No bueno.
Like yeah. Devin, do you ever have anything like that? I don't think we've ever talked about stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I have two Polaris Razor 1000s, both high lifters.
He's got big boy money, so if he
Oh.
wrecks,
Mhm.
he's got a roll cage if he wrecks, so he's good.
Yeah.
Do you mod yours out at all?
We do. We one of them we got has a it's more of a sand dune roll cage on it, but we just thought it looked better. We don't go sand duning with it. We don't. Our stuff isn't geared like that. So like one of them has portals on it, and what that does is it adds gear reduction, adds a bit of lift, and it makes it wider. But yeah, we've got rims, roll cages, speakers.
So he's got like show
Yeah.
razors.
Yeah, we
Those-
got lights everywhere. Good interiors.
That's one. I really hope whenever I make my move to my old stomping grounds next week,
Mhm.
I want to get one of those, because my night crew manager at my store has one, and he talks about how much he customizes it, and he shows me pictures. This thing is so beautiful,
Yeah.
and I want to do it, but I know the customizations for that stuff can get pretty expensive
Oh
too.
yeah, we spent a little bit of money on it.
You-
But hopefully you can come back after you move and we can see how it goes.
yeah, I'm excited
Mm-hmm.
because I'm about a mile and a half away from where I grew up for 18 years, and
Oh yeah.
it was I'm in the city limits instead of being in the mountain, but
Yeah.
it's not hard for me to get to the mountains, so that's kind of cool. But the unfortunate thing is, as a kid and being 27 now, I don't know the cops that govern the area that used to,
Yeah.
because back then I can drive my four-wheeler up the road and wave to cops and they wouldn't care.
Mm-hmm.
It was the game commission we always had to worry about.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten chased from the game commission quite a few times, and I don't know how you guys' states require for four-wheelers and stuff. So when you get it registered through the state, they give you the license plate, and you're required to have it on the back of your four-wheeler at all times.
Yeah.
And-
We don't have plates. We just have stickers.
You can't get a four-wheeler registered over here.
Well, it's not registered as a legal road vehicle.
Yeah.
You can register it through the state. You can get insurance on it, but you can't drive it on state game lands. You can only drive it in recreational areas that the state designates.
Mm-hmm.
So where I lived was all state game land. The Appalachian Trail runs right through pretty much my backyard where I grew up. So I would always ride around, and there was old strip mines we would ride at, and it was getting to the point where the state was getting so bad, and they were chasing people away, and I accidentally threw a stick through my holder that held my license plate on,
Good.
and the license plate always remained under my seat. So
Yeah,
because they were
that's crazy.
because for a while there they were just grabbing your license plate and they'd send you the fine in the mail for being on government, property.
Yeah,
I
we have. You don't have to have your 4-wheeler registered. See, I'm not speaking for Louisiana. I'm speaking for Mississippi, because that's where we do our hunting and we, bring 4-wheelers out there. But I know in Louisiana you can get it registered. But I know in Mississippi you don't have to have it registered. So I guess a lot of states have a lot of different, rules when it comes to that.
Yeah. I I think the only time I ever really had trouble with any type of law enforcement when I was riding my 4-wheeler was I used to ride. So my friend lived about a half mile up the road from me. We lived on a stretch of road where there was strings of houses.
Yeah.
My friend, she lived about, like I said, a half mile up where there was only one or two houses and she was secluded away. So you had to drive up the main drag. Well, they got a young guy who just got, put into the office, and he, by the book, man.
Oh yeah, Macho Man.
And I never rode my 4-wheeler with a helmet on because I was pretty smart about how I say that after I tell you the story about how I ripped my transmission apart, but I wasn't stupidly riding around and jumping things and doing things that could have physically hurt me. I was just casual riding, going through mud and all that stuff. And I was going up the street and he was passing by me, and I looked and I saw the guy in the car and he did not look familiar, and I'm like, man. So I stopped. He says, "Hey, where's your helmet at? Why are you riding on the street?" I said, "Oh, I'm going up to my friend's house. My folks aren't home." So he escorts me back to my house. He says, "I don't want to see you riding on the road again." And my road was on a decline, and there was a place we had called the Flats where it dipped down in, and it almost looked like the car would just disappear for about a few seconds. Then it would come back up over this little hill and then go back down. And as soon as that cop hit the flats, right back on the road and fly up the streets I go. And that was the only time, other than one time, I got chased by the game commission, but they didn't know the woods like we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, around here, me and my friend we was riding, and we ended up going. We got a lake next to our his house, probably 3-minute drive. So we was like, yeah, we can take our bikes from his house to the lake trail entrance. And you wasn't supposed to have any motor vehicles on this trail. It was like, oh, what's gonna happen? And this is a very new lake too. And we didn't think anything was gonna happen. So we're going down the trail. We probably get 2 or 3 miles to the trail, and it splits off into 2 roads or 2 trails. And we're like, all right, which one do we want to take? And I was leading, so I was like, let's go up to the right. And it ended up leading up to the highway, which had a bridge that crossed over the lake. And so basically, we come out of the trail, and there's this silver Silverado coming down the road. He slows down. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. And then he pulls off to the side of the road where we are. I'm like, uh-oh, that's definitely not good. But I noticed that, I didn't see any lights on or police lights on the vehicle. None, no like visor lights or light bar or anything. Wasn't marked or anything. I was like, all right, so he must work for the county. And then I was like, all right, Caleb. Caleb is my buddy that I'm riding with. I was like, we're about to get away from this county worker. And so we turn around, we go back down the trail under the bridge, and there's a tree, like a huge tree that we couldn't have got over even if we tried. It was in our way, and I was like, we got to turn around. And so we turned around, and the county worker is still sitting up there on top of the road. I was like, no. And so we just turn around, we go back from where we came from, and we found this like opening that led into this lady's backyard. And she was in her yard. And so I go up the hill, and my friend, he tries to go up the hill, but he somehow stalls it. and he couldn't get his bike started back. His bike started back. He was kicking it and kicking it and kicking it. It wouldn't start. So we pushed it to the top of the lady's hill, and then rolled it back down. And he bump started it. And then we turned around, whipped it through her yard onto the highway, and we just skirted up out of there. It was, yeah, exciting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I've never
If
had.
it was a cop, I would have stopped.
I've never
but-
had close calls with law enforcement. So there was a long time ago. We used to live in these apartments, and so we had our grandparents who lived in an apartment, and then we had and then we lived on a condo in the front. And I was at my grandparents' house after school one day, and they said, "Okay, so your parents are home." So I said, "Okay." So me and my brother, we walked to the house, and they weren't there. So we had all the kids that lived around us, and we were telling, hey, our parents aren't home. And they had this one girl that was there, and she's like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to leave until y'all find your parents." I was like, okay. So he said, "I think we should call 911. I was like, I knew it was a bad idea, but I kind of wanted to see what would happen. So I was like, "Okay, you do you." And she called 911 and handed me the phone. And I was like, "No."
Whoa.
So I gave it to my brother, and he didn't want to talk either, and so we hung up. So our parents ended up coming, and it was later on that afternoon, and there was a sheriff's deputy had come out, and he had his spotlight on, the spotlights that are on the front of the cruisers, and he had it just going through all the condos and the apartments, just shining it through. And I told my parents, I was like, he's here because of us. He's looking for us. So they went out and they told the cop, and he came into our living room and was like, you guys, you can't play around with that kind of stuff, telling us stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's really the only time I've ever had problems with, cops. And that was a long time ago. I was in elementary school. I was in 3rd or 4th grade. But I remember that.
I have one more story now that I think about it, because it's actually pretty similar. Before we wrap up, so when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, we had a set of neighbors that lived up at the top of our road, and their daughter was one of those pixie cut, "I'd like to speak to your manager" type people.
Oh yeah.
Oh, she was a Karen.
And this kind of goes back to, I don't know, there's some sort of vibe, and I never liked her. Well, I thought it was a great idea to stand. So there was a garage across the street from my house, and he had this concrete stairwell that went up to, where his little dirt path around the garage was. And I stood up there, and I threw a rock at that lady's car as she was driving up the street the one day.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I threw a rock at her car, bolted through the woods, and then, meanwhile, she's freaking out. She calls the cops, and in the middle of that, she eventually drives up to her house, gets everything taken care of. She had her youngest daughter in the car at the time, which, if I recall correctly, she would have probably been maybe 1 or 2 years old.
Man.
Oh boy.
That's
And-
How old were you at the time?
I'm gonna say around 8 or 9,
Yeah.
give or take a year or so, whatever. And so I run back into the house. Little chubby me at the time goes running back into the house. I run inside, go run to my room, and my parents are like, "The hell's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just not feeling well. I'm gonna go to bed."
Oh, good. One of those.
So I run into my room, bury myself under the blankets, and I look out about 5 minutes later, and there's 2 cops sitting outside my house.
Oh no.
And there's this lady sitting there, and I'm thinking, "Oh no!" Like, and then I hear, because this house that I grew up in was very old.
Yeah.
I remember hearing the creak of my dad coming up the stairs,
Oh, that's rough right there.
and pounding on my door. "Jason, you get your fucking ass out here right now!" And
Oh boy.
I was so afraid because at the time my dad worked as a corrections officer, and you don't want to mess around with somebody that works around inmates for a living. So I come out and I the lady goes, "Did you throw a rock at my car?" And I'm like, trying to cover it up. I'm like, "Well, I was just kicking rocks and it slipped."
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
That's how you do it.
And she's like, "No, I definitely saw you throw a rock." And so, long story short, here, I ended up confessing that I did it. I
Yeah.
got my ass whooped. I was grounded for like a whole year. Um, about 2 years later, that same lady in the wintertime cut my mom off. She was driving down the middle of this road. And now, mind you, it wasn't a very wide road, but it was enough to get two cars if you knew how to drive correctly. This lady flew down the road in the winter on an unplowed road. My mom almost veered into a ditch, and my mom said to me, she said, "You know what? I kind of wish I wouldn't have grounded you for throwing a rock at that lady's car. She's kind of a bitch."
Oh boy.
So yeah, that was my only real like bad experience I ever had with law enforcement, and that one just that one stuck around because not only did I got my ass handed to me by my father that day.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was actually going to go to juvie or something.
They'll scare you with
The
that.
age of 9.
Oh yeah, that frightened me a lot. That was because I got threatened to go to juvie quite a few times because I had a lot of anger issues when I was younger, and
Hmm.
my parents threatened to do that. So that was like I'm thinking to myself, this is the tipping point now. Like
Yeah.
like I've pissed my parents off enough to the point where they're probably going to send me to some sort of juvenile detention, but I was fortunate enough to never have to go through that. So moral of the
Yeah.
story: don't throw rocks at your neighbor's cars, even if they have a Karen haircut. It'll
Karen
come.
haircut. That's
It'll
that's a rough
it,
one.
it'll come back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Looks like we only got time for one more story. I mean, I could tell
Mhm.
at least 5 or 6 more about me and some law enforcement times.
Yeah. Stream time
But
is up hour and 23. We've been talking most of that.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
But this one time is whenever little. I can barely remember this, but I remember it was late at night. It was probably, or I say late at night for little AA on. It's probably 9 o'clock, probably pushing 10 maybe. Um, and we had a knock at our door. We had a knock at our door, and my dad goes over there, answers it, and it's a cop. And he's telling my dad that they're having to search the area because somebody was running from them, and then ended up ditching the vehicle in my neighborhood. I was like, oh, okay. And I remember going outside, watching them searching our yard, search everywhere, and then we had a storm pit in our backyard. And I thought this was the coolest thing ever as a little kid. But the cop went down into the storm pit, and then he had his pistol in his right hand, flashlight in his other. He's going through clearing everything, and he just comes up to the storm pit, and he just kicks open that door, and clears it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I was like, "Oh, dude, that's awesome,
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought you were gonna say you locked like the cop in the storm pit.
dude!" I'm freaking.
Now are we talking like
Imagine.
the storm pits like with the old like steel doors like?
No, I had like an old wooden door. I think it's just a piece of
Oh.
plywood
Now,
over it.
explain to me. I live in Louisiana. What's a storm pit?
It's a hole in the ground to
Yeah.
keep you hidden from a tornado.
Okay, so a
See,
It's
tornado
like
cellar
a
thing.
concrete hole.
see, yours is a little bit different than how ours were,
Oh,
because
is
a
it?
lot of the storm pits we had up here in the older houses, because somehow back in the days they had to worry about tornadoes in the mountains, but they built them as there was giant metal. It's like a basement to your house, but you went outside, opened up these big metal doors, walked down into it, and it was very narrow and just it was horrendous. And I remember locking my buddy in his one day, and he was like freaking out, and his mom almost like murdered me. But
Yeah.
Found a dead cat in
If-
mine one time. I don't know where it came
oh,
If we
oh,
had stuff like that around here, they'd just get filled with water and just be inconvenienced. I mean, South
Well,
Louisiana,
yeah,
It's a concrete hole in the ground.
I know.
yeah, a
Get
lot.
filled with
Well,
water.
a lot of the premise of that stuff isn't to be, finished and have all
Yeah.
the stuff in it. It's just to protect you in the event of a major storm.
I had to go in ours multiple times.
Yeah,
I
I'm
never
glad
had to
we-
worry
we don't
about
have-
that.
We don't have tornadoes too bad around here. But
My house almost got hit by a tornado on 2 different occasions. So
Yeah.
one of the tornadoes hit my house. Actually, there was one side of my house. It was destroyed, or not my house, but like probably 7 or 8 acres over. It was just destroyed, and then skipped my house in my neighborhood, went over to this other neighborhood, literally across the street, probably half a mile, and then destroyed their house. I was like, oh, I got lucky.
yeah, it's definitely no bueno. So our stream time is up to about an hour and 27 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. But I think we had a great first podcast, and I can't wait to do another one. Jason, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the next one will be up, but hopefully it'll be soon. Today's Monday, so it'll definitely be this week. Now, having a lot of fun, and hopefully we should have more topics, things to talk about. Like I said, join our Discord. That's the best way to be part of the podcast. You can see it there on your screen. Also, you can get the About on our YouTube page and see it there. But definitely had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yep.
All right, see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.